Welcome to the Podunk Polymath, a podcast dedicated to the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. I'm your host, Chris. Come on in. This is episode 5 of the Podunk Polymath podcast. Thanks again for joining me. I have a little housekeeping to take care of. I will be on, actually, I guess I could say this next week, but why not? The 24th, I'll be on a leukemia streamathon hosted by Atheist Nomads. I'll be on at 9 o'clock Central on the 24th, which is a Saturday, if you want to check that out. It's for a good cause, so definitely come and check it out. I just recorded with Tucker for another reading from the Apocrypha, Esdras, fourth Esdras, oh my god, I can't even say it. 4 Esdras, 6 through 8, maybe? I don't remember exactly the verses. It's a slog to get through, so I can understand why he needs to get people on to help him out, because I don't know if I would be able to pull it off by myself, to be honest with you. I don't really have much to say on the pre-ramble this week. Of course, the news is never really that great on any front, so the Colin Kaepernick affair continues to piss people off stupidly, in my opinion. I did see an article posted by the Friendly Atheist regarding an announcer at a high school football game that basically said if you sit down for the Pledge of Allegiance or national anthem, you should be lined up and shot by the U.S. military. So that's good stuff in Alabama. You know, lots of Christian love down there in Alabama. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, good stuff. On the palaver this week, I have a couple of guys I've known for a while, and we talk about the war on drugs. So it should be pretty interesting. They have their own podcast, but you'll have to wait to find out which one. So anyway, thanks again for stopping by. I hope you enjoy the palaver. And it will be the first with the new microphone, the first interview with a new microphone. However, the sound didn't come out great for some reason. I'm wondering if I was using my desktop instead of my laptop. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it's not horrible, but it's not the best I think it could have been. So hopefully you'll be able to stand it. Stand by for the palaver.
The Atheist Nomads are hosting a 12-hour streamathon from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. Mountain on Saturday, September 24, 2016, to raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night Walk. Dustin is walking for his mom, who survived Hodgkin's lymphoma nearly 35 years ago, and Lauren is walking for her uncle, who was lost to leukemia, and aunt to lymphoma. Both are walking as part of the Charger Valley Coalition of Reason team. The funds raised will be going to help patients pay for the ridiculously expensive treatments. Go to atheistnomads.com/live for more details and links to where you can donate. And yes, there will be a drinking game.
Misbehaven and Demand a Right promote secular feminism in a mostly metaphorical orgy of information, wisdom, and humor, with the help of the likes of a producer named God, a farting flying unicorn mascot, and a couple of dicks in the penis gallery. Promoting secular feminism is a podcast like no other that uses a spoonful of humor to help the feminism go down. Catch new episodes every other Sunday on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, and soon beam directly into your magical Meat Pocket communicator. Plug our RSS feed into your favorite podcasting app. Find that feed on our website that's creatively called promotingsecularfeminism.com. Potential stalkers and adoring fans can find us on social media at facebook.com/promotingsecularfeminism and on Twitter at secularfeminism. Want to reach out and touch someone? Well, contact us at promotingsecularfeminism@gmail.com. Leave a comment on our website, Spreaker page, and or message us on Facebook or Twitter. PSF is here to meet your bi-weekly feminist needs with a healthy, luminescent, flatulent chaser and is a proud member of Reason Alliance Media, a united voice for reason.
This week I have with me the duo from Cellar Door Skeptics, the Michigan Madmen, Chris and Christopher, Hannah and Tanner, respectively. How y'all doing?
We are doing amazing.
Had to go there.
I had to go there.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good over here. A little tired, long week, but weekend starts, and hopefully I'll get some rest.
Good deal, man. I wanted to have y'all on, first of all, because, well, I know y'all, and y'all are awesome, and always have fun talking to you. And second of all, talk about an issue that is near and dear to many, I'm sure all of our hearts, the war on drugs. which is, I think we all agree, pretty much a massive failure.
Well, I don't know. I think Hannah supports Trump, and if I remember right, Trump supports the war on drugs. So, in essence, Hannah actually supports the war on drugs. I think I'm correct on that.
Oh, well, that makes complete sense.
It might be a war on hair gel or the comb over. I'm not sure. I mean, there might be something where we're going to start pulling out kingpin quotes in bowling. I'm not positive exactly. Yeah, no, Trump had probably broken all the rules in the war on drugs, which is probably why he cannot maintain one cogent thought or even complete a sentence sometimes. Just beautiful run-on sentences.
First of all, before we get into the weeds on that, why don't you tell everybody what your show's about and what y'all do?
We have a show? Hannah, did you know we had a show? I didn't know we had a show.
Yeah, I know.
Is that what we do every Sunday that you come over? I thought we just got drunk and yelled at each other.
That's pretty close to what it is. No, we definitely try to do a little bit more of the skeptical stuff in the Grand Rapids area. We've dealt with the angry atheists. We've dealt with the basically the closed-minded groups, and we wanted to bring a little more politics in. So after dealing with some of the more one-sided shows and stuff that we did in our past, we wanted to get into something a little bit more variety. We do science, skepticism, just a variety of things, and then we get politics quite a bit actually. I mean, this is an election year, so we've been pretty heavy in that.
Yeah. So I will say Cellar Door Skeptics is a podcast based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, featuring Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. The podcast includes videos of the show, but they don't really show anything typically because we're not that far advanced yet. But we tackle science, skepticism, atheism, humanism, politics, entertainment, and Hannah's love for Trump and my love for saying amazing.
Okay, you just read that. I was looking.
I did not read that. How did I read that?
The entire fucking time.
I know, I got to get my other webcam back up that hides all that. You can't tell then.
That's fine.
Cheater.
That's good. I should do something like that. Anyway, so yeah, let's do a little background, I think, on the war on drugs. I'm sure y'all know that it was pretty much instigated in 1971 by Richard Nixon. Since then, of course, we've spent somebody said it was like $1 trillion over the entire time, which wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's like, I thought it was between like 500 and $1 trillion. So 500 billion and $1 trillion is the last number I've seen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could probably get a variety of answers. One on that, just because do you count the massive prison stay costs and all that kind of stuff, taxpayer way on that, or are you just talking about just the investigations, the court costs? I mean, there's so many ways you could look at the war on terror and what we've done with their policing, what we've done with everything to add up those costs. I guess it's just a wide open number saying 500 million to $1 trillion or 500 billion to $1 trillion. At that point, it's like measuring things in thousands of light years. I can't really comprehend that much money. I don't know how much you guys have in your bank accounts, but I'm not rolling around anywhere near that kind of quantity. So it's like, okay, sure, whatever the government spends on it.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount regardless. And what has it done? Has it done anything? Has it done anything positive?
I would say no.
Yeah, no, not me either. Yeah, I don't think it's changed really anything. I mean, the only thing that I think we probably have more of now, we have more designer, like synthetic or pharmaceutical drugs that are killing people and being abused now. If anything, we have that would be an uptick. So all the original and the ones that everybody knew of back when they started the war on drugs, and now we have the new ones the pharmaceuticals have created that are super strong and hyper specialized for very specific types of things that get turned into really, really dangerous highs. Well, I mean, we've added to the list. We've added to the whole thing. So I would say it's gotten worse.
Yeah. If you look at statistic, since 78 to 2012, there has been a rise of almost 1 million incarcerations in state populations. So that's $2.3 billion, let's just say, in Texas alone. And that's the problem. So it's not just that we're having an influx of drugs. We're seeing more people going to jail for it.
Yeah, exactly. And there was if I'm looking at the Guardian article, prices have actually gone down. So part of the rationale was to try to drive prices up on drugs, so it would discourage people from buying them. But apparently that's not the case.
Well, I know some of the legalization stuff that they've done in the United States and abroad. It's a little bit more expensive to buy through the legal means, but like people like me, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't. I would buy edibles and things like that because I have problems with smoking and inhaling. I've always had bad, weak lungs throughout my entire life. So if I could buy edibles, if I could buy, a way to consume it and enjoy it just like I would alcohol or something like that, I would. I would go to wherever the dispensary is, any place that I could get it and try it out and buy stuff. I would pay my tax dollars and I would be part of the system that way. And I would pay more than what you could get, for whatever underground stuff that you would get that's obviously cartel or something like that, which is a horrible thing. A lot of stuff in Michigan, since it's such a supportive for growers state. You can grow a lot here. But I wouldn't buy it from, illegal sources. I would buy it legally, and it would cost more money. So, you could drive up the prices going for the legal channels, and it's actually not really affected too much in places like Oregon and Washington and Colorado. They've had some great results for the more expensive stuff.
So it's more expensive, maybe, if we have a regulated market, although it's only been going on since, for 2 years or something? It's been 2 or 3 years since they started the legal markets in Colorado, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. It's been on and off a little bit. I think Colorado was the first one, I think, or Washington was the first one, and the other one came on about a year later or so. But it's still considered an experiment. They said, okay, well, we got these tax dollars coming in. We've got positive net flow from essentially removing this taboo and this stigma on just marijuana. That's the only one we're testing, and we've seen positive trafficking rates for people that are on tourist trips and positive tax rates and everything. So we've seen a lot of positives. We haven't seen a whole lot of negatives any more than having a festival and having drunk people walking around the streets. I basically don't really know of any real massive negatives that we've seen so far, just in the test markets.
Well, how about this? Let's relate it to business, because that's the realm I live in at work, right? So I work in problem solving. So we have issues come up. There's a big problem. We see an influx or an uptick of let's just say mispicking product or something like that. Something stupid to bore all your listeners. But if we have an uptick, what that does is it forces me to go out and look into why. I have to look into why that's happening. And a lot of times,
why more errors?
Yes, why more errors are happening. So whether they really are or not, it doesn't matter, but there's a reason we have to go do that. So I go and I'll do the research and I'll come back and I get to make a presentation. This is what we want to change, blah, 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 blah. If you look at the drug war, it just seems like somebody saw an uptick of something, probably because the media was blowing up at the time. Media communication in the 70s started to rise. It started to go even higher in the 80s. So people are thinking there's an increase of drug issues. And what do? People immediately react. Well, at my work, if I have a bunch of mispicks, I'm going to institute a double check system or some sort of a hand-holding system to make sure that things go out the door right. And then I wager what my cost differences are on that. So if it happens once a month, but I'm spending $1,000 a month double checking, that's probably not worth it. But if I'm catching it once a day and it would cost me, let's say, $10,000 versus the $1,000, I'm going to pick the cheaper of the two solutions. I think the drug war just is one of those things that went out of hand. They picked the wrong solution, and nobody's balancing costs versus what's happening in the United States. And now that our media has kind of started to bubble and burst, we're hitting that high cap of media involvement. Now we're to the point where we can go, okay, well, this makes no sense. This has just been a misnomer for the last fucking 30 years. I can swear on your show, right?
And it's 40 years, 40 plus years, actually.
40 years. See, that's I can't do math. That's why I have a calculator.
You're here for your looks, I guess, right? Oh, wait, it's a podcast. Yeah. Never mind. Can't see your ass.
Damn it. I should have got it dressed.
Well, that's why he brought the engineer on.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm there for. Yeah, I'm there for I'm there for the basic, boring stuff. But yeah, I'll talk you to sleep with some boring physics and general Newtonian mathematics. It's a good time.
You're the brains of the operation, right?
Well, we both are. I mean, he's got a bunch of stuff that I don't know anything about. Like, that's one of the things. Like, I don't know anything. I didn't grow up in any religious environment. So he is so much stronger in that stuff than I am. We complement each other with the specificity and specialization. Like, Tanner has actually worked with the legalization in Michigan stuff. So he's gotten me more interested in paying more attention to the stuff that's happening in Michigan, including the upcoming votes that we've got going on. I don't know. Do you have any votes or anything like that coming up in November for your state?
I think there was a proposal on the table, and I should have looked, for legalizing medical marijuana, but I don't think it got a committee. I can't remember. I'll have to check. But yeah, it's making its way down here too. There's proposals coming out in the southern states, which I don't know why I wouldn't, since that's the biggest cash crop around here.
It's huge.
I mean, it's unofficial, obviously, but it's like the biggest cash crop in Tennessee, and because it's prime growing area, the weather's right for it, the climate. So
that's one of the great things about cannabis. It'll grow just about anywhere in the country. It's such a resilient plant. I mean, you got to pay attention to it, but it's pretty resilient stuff. Yeah, so you guys got Tennessee. You got what was it? They removed some of the moonshine rules, so you got people that are able to brew, and then you've got a cash crop of weed. Tennessee sounds like a pretty cool place to hang out.
Well, you just gotta know where to go. You gotta be careful where you go, and be careful who you go with. And well, let's just say if you're not white, you're not gonna have a great time out in the country. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Hell, even liberal hippies like ourselves maybe wouldn't fare so well. Let me I have this article up about, there's a study that just came out like a couple of months ago, and it says authors call for scientifically grounded policies, including regulated markets for cannabis. And it says the 5-decade-long international war on drugs started by Nixon has harmed the public health and should be scrapped in favor of a process of decriminalization. And it says anti-drug policies and laws have had no measurable impact on supplier use and cannot be justified on scientific or public health grounds. And this is according to a study by the Johns Hopkins, Ivy League University, and the Lancet. So it's pretty prestigious. It says it's compelling evidence that countries like the Czech Republic have decriminalized nonviolent minor drug offense with positive results, including public health benefits, cost savings, lower incarceration rates, and no significant increase in problematic drug use. Okay, so I guess the biggest question is, if this has all come out to light now, and I'm sure I know this isn't the first time this has come to, these sort of studies have been done. Why the fuck has it taken 40 motherfucking years for them to realize this? I wonder what it could have something to do with. I'm thinking the government just likes to go around and fucking up people's shit. I don't know, I don't see a real good reason other than because Nixon was Republican, and they're supposed to be all about keeping out of your everybody in their own business. But it seems like Republicans, all they want to do is get in your business, whether it be a woman's vagina or or your bowl.
Yeah, I think that's actually the funny statistics, and they use that when it comes to having that conversation, especially around election time. People go, well, why the hell are you wanting to regulate this and that, but yet you won't regulate this? And the funny thing is if you look at libertarian model, the libertarian model actually would allow for the decriminalization and legalization of drugs faster than Republican model. And in that aspect, I can give them respect. Where I disagree with them on that is when it comes down to what they want to do with it. I want to tax it. I want to create a socialistic system where people feel comfortable if they do use, where we treat addiction like a disease versus, the bottom end of society. But you still have the government that's involved in it. And you still have bureaucrats and lobbyists and politicians that are buying into this. And what's funny? There's statistics that actually say that Marlboro has already been buying land to basically grow weed on. They're basically waiting for a large mass legalization and declassification from the federal government. And they just won't do it. Because there's two things. They got to admit, A, they're wrong. And, they're kind of like Hannah. He never admits he's wrong. Except for every once in a while. But you'll never hear it on the show. He always says it in private. But you have that aspect. And there's also a profitability for private prisons. And what else has happened this year? What's going on right now that's happened within the last month? Well, maybe 2 months.
The State Department said they're going to stop using private prisons.
Exactly. And so they're already taking a step towards, at minimum, decriminalization for a lot of drugs. And so the government's not going to profit off it. They're going to move their profit center somewhere else. But you have to get out of the Republican government to be able to do that.
What was the impetus? Why have we, like I said, why has it taken 40 years? And I think we need to get down to the kind of the history and the nitty-gritty of why this policy was started in the first place.
Well, I would say that the basic idea of why this kind of stuff has been happening for so long has a lot to do with misinformation early on for things like the cannabis fever. What was the old movie that they Reefer Madness? Yeah, Reefer Madness. Like basically the misinformation campaign that they had back then, and people held on to that and latched onto that. The baby boomer generation has still held on to it. I mean, they're the ones that are in the baby boomer generation, the one who went through they were born in the 50s. They went through the 60s and the 70s. I mean, they went through, the Flower Child and the Vietnam 70s. You'd think that they would have kind of kept that progressive value with them, but they managed to maintain it. And for some reason, marijuana maintained its intensely negative stigma all the way up until the Secretary of State or the Secretary General recently saying that it should stay as a class 1. Equal to heroin and stuff. Like these types of rulings and these types of things, for some reason, this has been something that's just latched onto society, and it has been much, much more intense in the conservative circles. We hear people with very, very intense conservative angles. A lot of religious groups just absolutely, intensely hate any kind of drugs, and some places alcohol and tobacco, depending on which your denominations are. But like these are types of things that just kind of held this back, and the progressive people in the country have had to, pull them kicking and screaming all the way into realization that, okay, it's not a black and white binary thing. All drugs are not bad. All drugs are not good. You gotta try to find your way in the middle. And like things like the marijuana and stuff, it's becoming the majority of the country thinks that it's okay. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is like early misinformation and not understanding. And with scientific literacy, maybe we've kind of started to move to the right direction.
What about racism?
Well, that's
I mean, so if you just look up just the base definition, and it actually, the war on drugs honestly goes back to the early 1930s or 1940s, right around there. That's when they started to talk about it, and they passed something called the Marijuana Transfer Tax Act, and there's a bunch of disputes about what happened with that, but that was technically speaking right around the first time they wanted to tax some sort of a narcotic. And I believe FDR was the first ones that started putting some sort of reform act, if I remember right. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to look that up. But I'm pretty sure it started right around FDR's time. And then Nixon's the one that popularized it because of the racist side of it, because they didn't like the hippies, right? The 60s movement that was anti-war. They associated drugs with anti-war. What they didn't realize is that they were just more humanists than the fucking assholes. But But
were the hippies consistently minorities, though?
It was.
I thought the hippie generation was mostly white, middle class Americans.
Well, absolutely clear. The whole marijuana thing goes way back. This goes back when they started realizing that Mexicans were smoking weed and blacks were smoking weed, and then that's when it started being... Yeah, and that's when it started becoming problematic, when they started realizing it. Let's also realize that Randolph Hearst, who was a newspaper magnate, really didn't want hemp to be used, because hemp is, of course, the non-narcotic or whatever, non-active product of marijuana plants of certain way. And so he saw hemp as a threat to his business because they were invested, of course, in trees, using trees for paper or whatever, and hemp would put him out of business. So he was part of a huge campaign to make marijuana look bad. That was one of the reasons, was for that purpose. So hemp wouldn't be used and undercut the paper market. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And of course, like I said, when they started realizing Mexicans were smoking weed and blacks were smoking weed, then it became a big deal, Up until that point, it wasn't even regulated. But when they started realizing that they were smoking it, they're like, oh, well, we can't have that. So they started, all the missing, like you said, turning them into beasts or whatever. There was the Marijuana Tax Act. It was like a stamp act or something, where you had to buy a stamp for the marijuana but if you did it, they knew you had the marijuana because it was like a catch-22 or whatever. So the whole thing is caught up in racism, classism, all American apple pie kind of shit. So this isn't anything new, really.
It doesn't surprise me, really. If you think about it, like you guys mentioned a little bit ago, that these major corporations are starting to buy up land, starting to prepare for when it's legal, right? When the big machine finally clicks over and starts allowing and gives the people that one little bit, the majority, the dangerous beast, as Madison once called it, James Madison, one of the founders of the Constitution. He used to talk about, the beast, the majority would strip, the minority of the opulent. And they would take the few who had everything, if you gave them the chance, if you gave them true democratic power, and they would spread that money throughout the world, or throughout the country. Well, the same kinds of things happen with these kinds of rulings. Now they've restrained it and restricted it, but now they're realizing that it can be monetized, and their hands being forced. It's going to be pushed, and it'll eventually, marijuana at least, will eventually be legalized in this country. I don't think they can stop that snowball from rolling down the mountain. And so we see these major corporations who are preparing themselves, and I guarantee you, because there's a couple of bills going through Michigan, and one of them in Ohio too recently, these kind of bills are going through that are giving major corporations an incentive and kind of a heads up and a lead over the average grower, the guy who wants to have a couple of plants, the guy that wants to do a local dispensary, that kind of stuff. It's giving these major corporations a head over basics, so they can take over the market, they can control it and completely capitalize it in the way in which most of our major markets are. There's a lot. Once this thing's happened, we need to keep an eye on that stuff too, so that this isn't just absorbed into Philip Morris tobacco, magnet, and that this just okay. This is a new product that's provided by the biggest companies in the country. This is another angle where the war on drugs works until it can be profitable. And then let's say these companies, these tobacco companies or whatever, are going to take over. At what point is it any kind of justification for the people who have been fighting for this for so long? It just immediately becomes the richest people in the world who've been saying it's illegal and bad. Now they're making billions off of it because it's now legalized. There's a step there that I think we should be questioning.
Like you said, race plays a lot into this shit. All of a sudden, now that it's profitable and rich folk are figuring out that they can make money off of it, they're perfectly fine with it. But where were they when they were? Let's not forget that over 50%, I think it's over 50% incarceration rate for black males in federal prisons, and they only make up 15% not even 15% of the population.
And what's going to happen when it's fully legalized? Are we going to immediately redact any marijuana offense in the entire country? I would bet money on a no. So yeah, and so I mean, there's a complete redundancy there that we have to address as well when it comes just to marijuana alone. We're not even talking about any other stuff and dealing with pharmaceuticals and stuff. There's a lot of stuff here that we've got to deal with. But basically, this war that we've created, it has specifically isolated specific groups of people, putting a lot of them in prison. And even if we legalize it, those people are still going to be in prison. At least the ones that were part of the war.
Of course, the rich and powerful, the oligarchs, as Cornel West likes to say. Well, all those people who were selling little tiny bullshit amount of weed, serving 20 fucking years in prison, are just sitting there rotting in prison. And of course, there's, that's a whole different fucking thing. Prisons are horrible. And when they come out, if they weren't before, they come out being criminals because they've been criminalized by these prisons. There's no rehabilitation. You can't get a loan. You can't get a federal loan to go to college, I think. You can't vote. Well, some states you can, I think. It goes state by state, the voting thing. Some states are better than others, but most states won't let you vote if you're a felon, an ex-felon. You can't get into federal housing, like Section 8 housing and shit. So what the fuck are you supposed to do? Yeah, I mean, that's another, the campaign that
you can't even probably get a job.
X the box or whatever, because there's a...
Yeah, we had a candidate on that's running for the 2nd District of Michigan, Dennis B. Murphy, and he was talking. He's supporting that. If he gets in, he's going to support it's remove the box or delete the box, and it's basically you don't have to check if it's not related to your particular offense. If your felony was in his example was if your felony was in stealing money from banks or basically, stealing money from corporations or whatever you worked at, and you try to get a job at a bank, yeah, you have to check that box saying that your felony, that your arrest was relevant to that particular job. But if it's not relevant to the job, you don't have to check the box, and that could help these people get back into the workforce. Because currently, right now, if you're a felon, or even if you have been to prison or if you've been arrested for other jobs, or arrested for doing other things, like if you're lower down on the arrest levels, there's still very little incentive given to you to get back into the system, get clean, get completely profitable and participatory in the system. I mean, there's so many walls against you that if you go into jail, if you get stuck in prison, if you have a couple of marks against your record, you might as well just play the absolute Wild West card and just go for anything and everything that you can get. I don't really know that, like you said, there's no rehabilitation, and so like the other thing about the war on drugs is how much economic aspect has been added to the system, stuff that we haven't monetized here, with people who are just not in the workforce, people who are on welfare, people who are in need, who wouldn't normally be. They are willing to work. They want to work. They want to be better, but they are blocked. They're held down by, all kinds of regulations that say, no, this person made this mistake in their life, and there's no chance that they'll ever fix it. Well, I mean, I have a hard time believing that. You call me a utopian, but I would like to think that if you give people a chance, they're going to give it a shot.
If you treat somebody like an animal long enough, they're going to start acting like that. And that's human beings in general. That doesn't have anything to do with race or anything. Human beings are animals. I mean, when you come right down, we're not some special. We have a bigger brain than most species, but that's what it all boils down to, is the criminalization of the whole aspect of drugs. That's the problem, and I think that's one of the things that report was saying we need to work on. Stop treating it like a criminal act. Start treating it like a problem as far as rehab or something like that. Rehabilitate. But they're not interested in that. And who's not interested in that? Well, that's the Republicans. And why aren't the Republicans interested in that? Well, who's the majority of people who are being arrested for drugs? Blacks and Hispanics mostly. And who do blacks and Hispanics vote for pretty regularly? Not the Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty much.
We had in Grand Rapids, when we worked with the decriminalize thing, the majority of the inner city was minorities. They had like a rate of like 70% minorities to white people, actually. And the majority of arrests were that, and they were all for small crimes. And there was somebody associated with the police department that came aboard and kind of talked about it, right? And they came out and said, well, basically, cops would get so tied up with these small arrests that they wouldn't go have enough time to investigate other crimes. And then the department was in millions of dollars in decline. The GRPD was. They were in debt millions and millions of dollars. And we were able to prove out a $2.5 million savings in 1 year just by decriminalizing marijuana, because they can still not arrest, but they can still grab the people, get the money for it, but they're not going to fill up jail beds. They're not going to waste judges' times. They're not going to waste lawyers' times. And none of that's going to be subsidized by us as taxpayers. All of that goes away. So all you have is a police officer that has to confiscate it and dispose of it and write a ticket. It's not any longer than a speeding ticket is. And I've seen them give them out downtown. It's kind of funny.
That's weird. So I was like, okay, you got to give me... It's like the old way they used to deal with people that were drinking and driving. It's like, okay, give me your booze, and they pour out whatever's already open and send you on your way.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. But what does that tell you? That tells you it never was about it wasn't ever about trying to get rid of drugs. It never was about that. It was just about basically incarcerating an entire group of people. It didn't have anything to do. They weren't trying to keep the peace. Who fucking instigated this shit to begin with? Nixon. Oh, what was Nixon all about? Law and order, right? The law and order candidate? I mean, can you blow that dog whistle a little motherfucking louder? It's the same thing Trump's doing. He's blowing that fucking whistle. That dog whistle. That's telling all the white people that he's going to do something about these fucking pesky minorities, especially the blacks and Hispanics. And of course now we've got, these fucking Muslims fucking everything up. So it's the same fucking thing. It's trying to keep minorities down. the groups of people. It's trying to instill fear in people. And when you're afraid of and paying attention to minorities, what are you not paying attention to? You're not paying attention to the rich fuckers who are reaching in your back pocket and fucking stealing you blind.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. That's one of the biggest things that I always try to remind people. It says that the greatest thing that the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, the people at the top, the elite ruling class, the greatest thing they ever did was convince the middle class white American that the minority was coming to steal your money, your job, your paycheck, your happiness, your security, everything, your safety, everything that the United States provides is good. The middle class white American is being threatened by the people, the African Americans, the Mexicans, any kind of immigrations. It used to be Italians and in New York and Irishmen, but then it left the nationality. I mean, I guess you could call that race, but I mean, it left the nationality issue there, and it became down to African Americans and that were already here that were segregated, and then Muslim and Mexican immigrants coming in all around the world. Like what we've done is we've just convinced the middle class guys, those guys that are seriously pro-Trump, they're pissed off. They're pissed off, and they have a right to be. They have a right to be angry. I mean, they've watched these problems happen, and they want to blame it on drugs. They want to blame it on immigrants. They want to blame it on minorities. They got to have somebody to blame it on. And the people at the top are like, hey, dude, it's those guys. It's them. It's this. It's that. And they keep pointing downward, and we never look upward. We never question, like you said, Nixon, the law and order candidate. What's he doing? He's driving you. He's driving the middle class to the conclusion that he wants them to have. And we've seen this for decades now. It's time, to start paying attention to the people at the top. Look upward a little bit and see maybe you can figure out what the answer is. And I don't know. The only thing I can hope is that with social media and people being a little bit more aware and information being disseminated so quickly that maybe we'll start paying attention to people at the top. Otherwise, this is going to continue. It won't be the drug war. It'll be something else similar to it that just keeps us fighting amongst ourselves.
Well, yeah, they'll use any fucking method they can to do that, to achieve their end, make sure they divide and conquer. Keep the little people unaware that they're being, like I said, robbed blind, and they're not even aware of it. But let's look at a little positive. Portugal, like it said in the report, Portugal is one of the countries, and this was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I think. It was about it was before Colorado, the state was doing it. Now, they decriminalized marijuana, and of course, drugs in general, and they went to a model where is concentrations on rehabilitation. And the report says that's been a huge success. And I don't think that's any surprise to anybody, to be honest with you. Anybody with half a brain.
No. And the Netherlands had similar statistics. There's an article that's got all the statistics in it that basically talk about. They're a little older. They're from 2009, but they talk about percentages between the U.S. and Netherlands. And they talk about what's the big difference, between the two. Prison population is almost 100% more. Well, I guess it'd technically be 1,000% more than the Netherlands. The marijuana usage just for 1 year is 4% higher in the U.S. The prevalence of heroin is over 1% higher. And we're talking Netherlands is 0.5, U.S. is 1.5. The U.S. outranks them on everything. And it's the same if you look at Portugal. It's the same thing. They're being outranked. They're outranking us.
The only thing that I would think of is when it comes to these numbers like that, one of the things that people talk about is that if we decriminalize, on Sunday it's illegal, on Monday it's not, they're saying that it's going to be chaos, it's going to be wildness in the streets, and to a certain degree it would be. If you think about it, if we had, let's say we reduced the drinking age in the United States to 18 versus 21, what would happen? The first year, 2 years, it'd be chaos. It'd be insanity. High school kids just getting ripped. And then, it'd slow down a little bit. People would be like, okay, this is the way it is. This is the normal thing. We would have the same kind of problems we have, with youth, teen people making impulsive decisions and drinking. But it would just be, a few years earlier or whatever. It's similar to what happens in Europe. They basically have no drinking ages, and they have, just a widespread understanding that this is normal. And so getting past the initial, oh, it's legal, everybody jumps on the bandwagon and goes hardcore for it. Once we get past the first initial, bump in irregularities that you're going to run into, then maybe it'll be, okay, this is normal. This is what we do. And then we'll make slow adjustments. We don't have to make the permanent decision for all time coming up here. We can legalize some stuff. We can try some things, and we can adjust. We can use the scientific method, and we can make adjustments to the thing. Hey, this isn't working. This is working. We can make, we'll change this a little bit.
Did you use scientific method? Sir, this is America.
Yeah.
In America, we don't use the scientific method, boy. We use Jesus.
Or grammar, apparently. No, I mean, it's the same way. The Northern Europeans, Amsterdam is the one that's known for being the big one. And I mean, they've tested it out. They've tried, reducing hashish and marijuana and a variety of other small drugs like that, and making them legal. And they've actually mushrooms and stuff, and they've had really positive response from them. But they're harsher on the heavier drugs. But it's not so much harsher like we are harsher here with the criminalization. They're harsher. I mean, they'll immediately arrest you, but it's to help you get away from that kind of stuff. And so there's so many different ways to try it out and to fix it. And these experiments that are happening in the 2 states in the United States that are the places in the United States that are legalizing it, I'd love to see the results, and I'd love to see it spread around and let people make the decisions from themselves whether or not it's a good thing, as opposed to the government using that authoritarian, this isn't good for you because we're smarter than you. I don't really subscribe to that a whole lot.
Forgot to mention, I think this is important, the disparity between white and black arrests as far as drug use goes. Even though the statistics show they do about the same amount, but black users are arrested like disproportionately more, way disproportionately more. And this plays into the whole racist aspect. I mean, the war on drugs, when Reagan basically kicked it back up in the 80s, what was it you heard on TV all the time? Or what did you see? You saw crack users. You saw black crack users in the ghetto or whatever. And that was the images we grew up with. I grew up with that kind of shit. And whether you believe it or not, that's your impressionable young mind. And what do you see? You associate black people with drug use, right? It's almost sort of a subtle propaganda, not so subtle propaganda, And I think that's played a huge role in kind of our attitudes, and it's made it a lot easier for people who benefit from that sort of propaganda to maintain power. It's been beneficial for them to maintain that power over these last 30 years. And, who don't see through it are going to buy into it.
Yeah, we'll look at the Black Lives Movement. Black Lives Matter, basically, why are they so scary to white people? Why is that actually that scary? They want to be treated equally. They don't want to be murdered in the street. They don't want to have the higher rates of death. Well, there's reasons for it. Because you have your balance of power. Let's just say you can have 20 crowns, and only 20 people can own these crowns. At some point, if we want diversity, we would want to allow for minorities and other genders to be able to take up, hold of these. Well, what does that do? That it takes it away from somebody. And I don't want to say there's this finite amount of power, but to a point there's a finite amount of power in the United States.
Zero-sum game quotation happening here?
Yeah, I was going to say zero-sum game. Yeah, exactly.
And so, but when you look at it, that's the problem is that now, look at Obama. Obama took power from a bunch of white people, and you have a lot of people getting angry about it, and people want that back now because they want that control. And so that's the same thing with the drug war is they ran out of ways to keep black people down and minorities down in the 80s. This was an easy thing. And what does a lot of drug use stem from? A lot of people use it as an escape. Now marijuana, we could argue about that all day long, and I don't know if that really is really relevant to this. But people use drugs and alcohol as an escape. Well, there's reasons why people want to escape and want to continue to escape is because if you were shit on every single day of your life and you get older, you're gonna think you're not worth much more, and when you try to do something, you continue to get shit on because of large governments that have screwed people. What do you think people are going to do? They're going to give up.
Well, think about the opposite end of things. Is let's say you're a minority kid who's been, you've had some problems, you've had people isolate and oppress and just tell you can't do stuff or what you're doing is wrong, and you see your friends get arrested all the time. And then you see someone like the Stanford rape case kid. It's like, oh, well, listen, we don't think that this kid, prison's going to be too harsh for him. And so we don't think he should ruin his life. And he should get his, like, those kinds of second chances happen in the white community, in the opulent white community. Like, those are things that happen regularly. And now with social media, we're actually seeing a little bit more reporting because the average people are sharing these stories and they become viral. But this kind of stuff happens when it comes to drugs and alcohol and all those types of things. Like, someone gets arrested just in Michigan alone. I'm going to talk the rich portion that we have is in Bloomfield Hills. That's a really, really rich part of town. And if you get arrested, there's a chance that you could get away with it, for alcohol or for marijuana. We're losing, the people that are arrested in really rich parts of town. Like, let's say in Michigan, Bloomfield Hills is a really opulent side of on the east side of the state in the Detroit suburbs. If you get arrested for maybe driving with alcohol in your system, or you get arrested with a little bit of weed in your pocket, if you're part of the rich community, there's a chance you could just be let off. But that doesn't happen nearly, if at all, in the poor communities, in the ghetto, in the Detroit's, the downtown Detroit districts and stuff like that. Like, these are specific things that are different when you talk about the race war as part of the drug war. I mean, this is a very specific example of those types of things, like the rape cases where you see people getting pushed off and let off. When you see that, when you're a minority, you get angry, you get pissed off. What incentive is there for you to want to play by the rules? It's the same thing I mentioned a minute ago when I talked about the Trump followers that are really pissed off and they're angry. They worked their whole lives. They worked middle class, and they were told, hey, you know what? When you retire, you're going to have this there. You're going to have this system there. And these things have been disappearing. The safety net for American manufacturing is disappearing. And these people are pissed off, but they're getting angry downward. They're getting angry at minorities and immigrants, as opposed to getting rid of people who remove unions, who remove that safety net. And this is part of the issue with you mixing all these things into the drug war is mixed into the huge socio-political mess that has been happening with American inequality for the last, 60 years or so. I mean, ever since the end of the World War, we've seen broadening on that. We had 90% tax rates for a little while, but I mean, the drug war is a good example of that type of inequality where the top-down approach is working.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about, the middle class boom after the World War II was an exception, not a rule. That wasn't something that lasted very long at all.
No.
So, like I said, there's a huge disparity between black and white in drug arrests. And you're right, they don't... all this shit is intertwined, and sometimes it's hard to tease some of this shit out because all the social issues seem to be kind of, like I said, intertwined with each other. So it's hard to kind of try to solve one without trying to solve a bunch of others,
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's a difficult issue. But let's talk about, finally, what can we do in this country? What can we do as citizens to try to influence people to have a policy of decriminalization and focus on rehabilitation instead of, like I said, criminalization?
Tanner, you've got a history in this. I'll let you go ahead and start it off.
Did you say I have a history in math?
No, you have a history in this. Oh. I'm going to let you start it off. Are you hearing problems? Are you having hearing issues?
I kind of am. I'm sorry. I went to a Weird Al concert. It was a little loud. So, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, right? They call it Maslow's pyramid. If you look at those different type of philosophies in psychology, what you're going to see is some of the basis of how we can try and convince other people where to go from it. So let's start with a personal example first, I guess. So we had decriminalized GR. When we went door to door, we presented the statistics. Hey, are you for saving money for GRPD? That's what we did. Maybe it's a little underhanded because they're like, well, of course we are. Well, by the way, if you decriminalize marijuana, but that's depending on who you were with and what area you were in, that's how you petition these people. And I went door to door to get, signatures. And sometimes you had to have a 10-minute conversation. But what I always went into is Maslow's pyramid in some way, shape, or form. Because, for example, in GR decriminalize, if you get caught with, let's just say, a small amount of pot, It's a misdemeanor. You have a probability of getting kicked off your scholarship. You have a probability of losing your job. You have a probability of having all these things. And I would ask them, is it really that big of a deal if they have a small amount of pot, right? So I'm not advocating they should have to go to rehab, but what if there was a different alternative sentences where people could go to rehab, where people could get out of some of these other things so that they didn't have to lose their life? And I said, if you think about it, if you can't satisfy that base level of life, people are going to repeat it. And if you put them in situations where they have no way to get out, but become slaves, and either they're your slave or, I guess, society's slave, there's nothing that people are going to do. You're caught. And so if you spend all your money having to buy food for you and your kids, you're on that survival level, right? That's what's going to happen, is we're going to get to that point. And that's what we used when we had to decriminalize GR talks is, hey, if we can provide these other things, we'll be able to do that. But we can't do that till we decriminalize it, because we got to get these people out of the system. And then we can actually focus on where to go from there.
You want to meet their basic needs, so they have, food, happiness, water. They're safe and they're comfortable, and they don't. And once you give them that, then they might not. Okay, I need alcohol or drugs to escape.
Yeah. Yes. Essentially, yes. If you feed a baser instinct and provide people to allow for them to have happiness, they'll perform better. It does. For instance, and I guess if I'm ranting, just tell me I'm ranting, but at my work, when I have employees that go above and beyond and they do it for numerous days, we reward them. Sometimes I can't afford to monetarily reward them because it's not within my allotment and my budget, right? But we can go, hey, we're going to purchase lunch. What do you guys, you want pizza? We're going to go to the nice pizza place this time instead of a shitty pizza place,
No little Caesars today, boys.
Yeah, we do. And so then we'll go out, and yeah, it still costs money. But in the end, they're happy. They felt rewarded. They felt like they were doing something and got something for it. If I could give them a small raise or a bonus every time, that would make my life a lot easier personally. But, that's just not the reality in the capitalist society we live in right now.
Well, for me, the big thing for me, it's a relatively quick fix for me. It's get involved with your local politics. I mean, everybody gets involved in the 4 years, and we rant and rave, and recently people just go nuts on their Facebook, and they blast and spam and post and share. Well, like I mentioned earlier on the show, we had I looked around and I found the representative that's one of the guys that's running for representative of my personal district, and I got a hold of him. I sent him a message. I found him on social media, and I said, listen, man, I want representative in the non-believer community. And I found out he's got all these great ties with all these great people in the CFI and all this stuff. He's an awesome, awesome candidate. And I totally, totally would love him being part of, the government, part of, the U.S. representatives for Michigan. So, and he's got great perspectives when it comes to health and welfare and drugs and I mean, we question about these things on our show. Get involved with your local politics. Get your state representative. Get your congressmen, your senators. Get all those people and find out their emails. Send them messages, and then when they're running for office, email them while they're running. Make them answer your questions, and maybe you'll show them, hey, this person really means this, or this community keeps emailing me about this, and you'll make a change that way. Because it's like the end of the movie SLC Punk. Basically, you realize, after being a punk and fighting the system from the outside for long enough, that you never make any change. The only way you can make change is from within. And so that's basically what I've learned in my 30 years is that I can't be a metalhead punk just pissed off and bitching and moaning all the time. I actually have to get involved in the system. And that's the only way you're going to make any difference. So if you really want to make a change, you got to do it from inside. Find a couple of channels and just get involved. You don't have to do a ton. You don't have to donate all your money. Just get involved.
And Hannah also thinks you should vote for Trump.
What the fuck?
God damn it, man.
I didn't get that reference on the SLC Punk thing, but okay. I agree with the sentiment. Sorry, I guess I'm not going.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm going to come over to my house one night, and Chris is going to spend all night erecting a Trump for in my front yard, and I'm going to actually get to burn it in effigy. Because he is, if you listen to our show, he mentions Trump probably 150% more than I do. So I don't know if you want to go through some backwards psychology there.
No, I think you're grasping at straws.
That's what we call reflecting. That's what we call that. So basically, get involved in your local politics. and you should do that anyway for any issue, but specifically an issue like this, concentrate on decriminalization, concentrate on rehabilitation, concentrate on getting drugs not to be a criminal issue, but something that could be treated, especially hard drugs. Marijuana shouldn't even be illegal anyway, to my mind. It should be regulated by alcohol. And as far as the whole war on drugs and all the stuff behind it, all the socioeconomic effects, causes and effects, Jesus Christ, man. To begin to unravel that fucking mess, and I said this before. I don't know who I was in a recent episode. I was like, we're going to have to destroy the whole fucking thing and start all over again. I don't know what you really can do about that shit, to be honest with you. But anyway, wrap this up. I appreciate y'all coming on and talking about this with me. It's been enlightening and interesting to hear y'all talk and insult each other.
We're not insulting each other. He really does like Trump. I mean, it's only an insult because he's Hannah and he shouldn't like Trump, but he does.
Well, I've got the victim mentality here. I don't report the hate crimes to the deaf person, the handicapped person in a room to the police like I should, but I don't know, maybe I'm enabling.
Oh, I forget about that part. You're hearing what's the word
I'm 80 to 90% deaf. I learned to speak before I lost the majority of my hearing, so most people can't tell, but I'm about as deaf as anybody you would ever meet.
Well, that sucks. I mean, I know that's putting it mildly, but that's not good.
Well, hopefully go stem cell, right? Yay, science! Because my hearing loss is nerve damage. So if they could figure out how to get people walking again, they can figure out how to get my ears moving again.
Yeah, regrow the nerves, regrow your nerves endings or whatever.
Yeah, grow that stuff in a pig and put it in my head. I don't really care how they do it, but let's get it working because. I mean, you talk about your natural degeneration of your senses over time. I'm 30 years old, 40, 50 years old. Most people lose 10 to 20% of hearing. That's all I got. So, I mean, when I'm 40, 50 years old, I might not be able to hear Tanner's wonderful voice at all anymore.
Wonderful? Yeah, that's not the word I would use. Piercing.
Amazing podcast.
It's huge. It's a huge voice. I have the best voices.
Of all the time?
Yeah. Of all the voices, I have the best voices. Yeah, exactly.
You collect them? You hang them in the wall in your basement?
Yeah, they go up on pictures next to you.
God, okay. Let me break up this love fest, guys. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find your show?
Well, we can be found mainly on Spreaker. We're also on iTunes, and I can provide all the links, but you can search for us on iTunes. If you do, please go over, sure you give us a rating. I don't care if it's 1 star, 5 stars, give us a reason why you're giving a rating. If you just want to check us out for a one-time thing, you can head over to Spreaker, listen live, or download the show right from their page. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook/Cellar Door Skeptics. You can find us, we have a website that we don't really maintain very well because neither one of us are IT web people. We have a website, cellardoorskeptics.com. We're on Stitcher. We use Jason, I can't ever pronounce his name, Jason Kuradu's music. And you can also find...
Cuomo?
What?
I think it's like Cuomo or something like that.
He'll shoot me later, but we use his music.
Yeah,
wait, you saw Jason Como?
Yeah.
Como, yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
We're from North. So we got lots of good words.
I always think of him.
It's French.
I always think of him like the New York governor Cuomo or whatever. I say it wrong. He's gonna murder us now.
I'm done. Just keep going.
Anyway, so you can also, if you would like to support the show for less than an energy drink or a pop, you can support the show for $1 an episode or as much as you want. We'll help make sure that Hannah gets better equipment, as well as gives us a reason to donate to charity. Because when we hit a certain dollar level, we do donate a percentage of that to charity. So I think we're due here in about 3 months to make our first donation. We do a once-a-year donation. So if you're looking for something interesting about skepticism, humanism, atheism, politics, and if you want to learn about a better tomorrow, we here at Cellar Door Skeptics will help make you laugh and cry as we prepare you for the revolution.
Oh my! And he read that again just to let everybody know, just to let y'all know about that. And it's Jason Como, and you can find his music at aloststateofmind.com.
Thank you.
Yeah. Even I know that shit.
Well, I can't pronounce his name.
And
I'm bad with
Bandcamp.
names. Bad with
He's on
names.
Bandcamp too.
Yeah. And make sure everybody go supports him because we use his music and he gives it away for free. You just make a donation if you want, but he has some awesome music out there and some of it's non-lyrical too, so.
Yeah, a lot of podcasts have been using it lately. And
it's good stuff, man. If you like a good heavy riff, he can throw it out.
He's a little eclectic because I'm not metalheads like y'all. I don't get that much. I'm more kind of a prog rock kind of guy. So he's got more grooves like that for some of that stuff. But anyway, all right, y'all. Well, I appreciate y'all coming on, and I'm gonna go and prepare for the revolution. See if I can get some cans together, and some bottled water and shit like that.
Yeah, you need some Rad-X and some Raid Away and
stuff like that. So
yeah, I got a radium rifle for you.
I don't even know what the fuck that is. I'm just gonna let that alone. Okay, guys.
You need a fallout shelter. Come on.
Yeah, I know what that is. I know what a fallout shelter is. All right, guys. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I'll talk to you later, hopefully.
All right. Thank you so much for having us on.
No problem.
Thanks.
All right, man.
That'll do it for this episode of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. Make sure you come and check me out on Facebook / the Podunk Polymath, on Twitter at Podunk Polymath. Email podunk.polymath@gmail.com. I'm on YouTube at youtube.com/c/the Podunk Polymath. Google plus.google.com/+the Podunk Polymath. Patreon. I'm still waiting for the first patron. You could be the one. The one. Patreon.com/the Podunk Polymath. Of course, you can also donate on my page, thepodunkpolymath.com, PayPal. There's also buttons, links to subscribe on the RSS feed, on Google Play, on iTunes, on Stitcher. There's also a button for the Patreon. I have tweets on there from my Podunk Polymath Twitter feed. And you can follow the blog on WordPress as well, if you want to do that. So, also I have a phone number, which nobody has called yet, 615-378-POPO, 7676. Leave a voicemail. Tell me how much you love, you hate, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just leave me something, man. Give me something to talk about instead of me just droning on about silliness. Also, I never mention the music purveyors for my show on here, even though I put it on my About page on the blog itself. And I always put it in the ID3 tags for each episode. They are ... And you can find their CDs, cdbaby.com/cd/... I know one of the guys in the band, he's a really good dude. Go support their work if you like it. I think it's great bluegrass stuff. So I encourage you to go find out more about it. Also, they're on Facebook, I forgot to mention. It's kind of a weird name. It's facebook.com/... and then -62951461991. It's easier just to come on the About page at the blog, and you can find it on there. And there's a link to it. So if you want to go check out their Facebook and give them a little love. Once again, thanks for joining me. I did want to mention that I got a little fanboying this week because Steve Shives, the great Steve Shives, the YouTube SJW overlord, liked the page and followed the Twitter feed. So I thought that was really exciting. I'm really happy to hear about that. I really admire his work, and you should go check out his videos. He got in a feud with the YouTube asshole contingent, and it's lovely, really lovely. You should go check him out. Steve Shives, just look him up. Steve Shives on YouTube. A lot of you probably already know who he is if you're part of the SJW crew, the evil contingent. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Y'all take it easy, okay?